They didn't even open the box, just stared at it like it was dirty. "We don't eat your food," Marla said, her hands folded over her spotless cardigan like she was scared I'd poison them. I stood there on the porch with that cake, and for a second, I couldn't move. It was a chocolate bundt, glazed and dusted with cinnamon sugar, the same recipe I've used since David was 9. Back then, he'd beg me to bake it for every birthday, even when I tried to make fancier things. "No, the round one, Mom," he'd insist. "The one with the hole." I hadn't missed a year, not one. Through college, through his divorce, through the lean years when he couldn't afford a party, I baked it. And I always left it with a note. Just, "Love, Mom." No guilt, no strings. But this time, when I rang the bell at their new place in Summer Grove, Marla opened the door, looked at the cake, then at me like I was a solicitor. "Oh, it's you." David wasn't even home, apparently. "He's out with colleagues," she said, without moving from the doorway. "But really, Ruth, we've talked about boundaries." I hadn't known we had. "I just thought he might want the cake," I said. My voice sounded small, ridiculous even to me. "We don't eat your food," she repeated. "You know that. All that sugar, the preservatives. Lucy's trying to eat clean." Lucy, my granddaughter, 16 now, old enough to decide for herself if she wants a slice of cake from her grandmother. But she wasn't there either. I nodded. What else was there to do? I left the box on the porch rail and walked back to the car. My fingers felt numb. The wheel was cold even in the warm October sun. Back home, the silence greeted me like an old dog. Familiar, dull. I didn't turn on the TV, didn't make tea. I just sat at the kitchen table, hands still in my lap, staring at the yellow curtains I'd sewn 30 years ago when David still lived here. I don't remember how long I sat there. Time bends in moments like these. At some point, I stood, walked to the hall closet, and opened the drawer with the blue folder. It held every receipt, every check, every transfer, a map of all the ways I've tried to help. $40,000 for their down payment, $8,200 for Marla's dental implants, $3,500 for Lucy's violin lessons. Each one made with love. No demands, no reminders, just quiet support, like water under a boat. And yet, we don't eat your food. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed with the lights off, listening to the fridge hum. I kept thinking, what exactly am I to them now? A relic? A wallet? A chore? By morning, the answer was clear. I got dressed, made a list, and called Mr. Halberd, my lawyer. "I want to come in this week," I said. "It's time to revise the will." There was a pause on the line. "Yes, of course, Ruth," he said gently. "Everything all right?" "No," I said, "but it will be." I hadn't opened that drawer in years. The blue folder sat beneath old warranties and expired insurance policies, quietly waiting. I pulled it out and set it on the kitchen table. The laminate was slightly curled at the corners, like it had aged too. Inside, rows of receipts, notes, copies of checks, all carefully paper-clipped, labeled by year. I started with the most recent. Last year's spring tuition for Lucy's private school, $6,300. A school Marla said would polish her social edges. "She's a brilliant girl," Marla had said over chamomile tea, "but she's still got a bit of that small-town stiffness." Meaning me, I suppose. Then came the loan I gave David when he was laid off. $15,000. I never called it a loan to his face. Just handed him the check and said, "You'll get back on your feet." He did. Got a better job, bought a new car, never brought it up again. Then the kitchen renovation, their housewarming gift. Marla had picked the tiles, white marble with tiny gold veins. "They'll never stain," she'd said. $9,200. I still have the Home Depot receipt. They never sent a thank you card. And of course, the house itself, the down payment. $40,000 wired directly to the escrow account. You're helping us build a future, David said back then. He was softer then, less cautious. His voice had warmth. I remember that day. The realtor had brought out a bottle of sparkling cider, Marla toasted. To new beginnings, she said. I stood there in my coat, holding a plastic flute, hoping I'd be included in this new life they were building. The inclusion didn't last. I turned to older papers, things I hadn't touched in more than a decade, bills from when David and his first wife split, attorney's fees, $2,700, the first therapy sessions for Lucy, $600, and then, tucked in the back, a birthday card from David. He must have been 14. The ink was smudged, the corners bent. Mom, thank you for making me the cake even when I didn't deserve it. I love you. D. I ran my finger over the words, the loops of his handwriting. So much innocence in it still. I sat back. The kitchen felt colder now. The furnace kicked on with a thud. There was a time when I believed money was a bridge, that by helping, I could cross whatever emotional canyon had grown between us. I never asked for much. Just a chair at the table, a hug that wasn't rushed. Instead, my help became invisible, expected, like gravity. And yet the smallest gestures from them, a phone call, a card, could still undo me. But last night changed something. It wasn't the insult, not even the dismissal. It was the clarity, the sharp, cold light of recognition. They didn't want me, not my cake, not my care, not even my presence. I stood, returned the folder to the drawer, but this time I placed it on top. This wouldn't be hidden anymore. Then I walked to the living room, picked up the phone, and dialed the number for Whitestone Bank. Hello, Mrs. Aldridge, the voice chirped. What can we help you with today? I'd like to review my automatic payments, I said, and cancel some of them. Certainly. Do you have the list? I have something better, I said. I have reasons. The bank manager's name was Calvin, young, brisk, always a little too cheerful, like someone who thought every problem could be solved with a friendly tone and a fresh password. Let's see here, he said, typing rapidly. You've got 8 recurring transfers. Shall I list them? I nodded, though he couldn't see me. Okay. Monthly mortgage contribution to Mr. David Aldridge, $2,500. Private school tuition to East Haven Academy, quarterly. Marla Aldridge's auto lease, $480 per month. Health insurance supplement. Oh, and utilities. Seems you're covering gas and electric too. He paused, clearing his throat. And there's a recurring grocery reimbursement, $350 monthly to David's household. That one started during the pandemic, I said. They said they were having trouble finding work. Yes, ma'am, he said quietly. Would you like to stop all of these? Yes. Another pause. The tapping slowed. All of them, Mrs. Aldridge? Yes, Calvin, I said. Everyone. Understood. I'll suspend all transactions effective immediately, but I'll need your signature on a confirmation. We can send it electronically. I'll come in. He didn't argue, just gave me a time. After I hung up, the kitchen seemed quieter, or maybe just cleaner, emptier, like something had been cleared out of the air, some residue I'd been breathing for too long. I poured myself a glass of water, carried it to the front room, and sat in the old recliner. The light was dimming outside, dusk stretching its long blue fingers over the yard. They'd call, of course, once the payments bounced or the emails from the school started arriving. Marla would check the balance on her car account and see 0. And then the phone would ring. But today, it didn't. Instead, I sat and listened to the tick of the grandfather clock and the occasional bark from a neighbor's dog. No one called, no one checked in, no one asked if I was all right. I was expected to give, but never expected to feel. When my husband Gerald died, David had flown in for exactly 2 nights. He gave a speech at the service, short, rehearsed, and left before I'd finished washing the funeral dishes. He said he had meetings, a deadline, a conference. The next time he called was 3 weeks later. "Mom, I hate to ask, but..." I didn't hate it. Not then. I was relieved. It meant he still needed me. But the need had curdled into something else, a kind of entitlement. They took, but they no longer saw. I wasn't a mother anymore. I was an account. That night, I stood in the hallway, staring at the framed photo of Lucy in 2nd grade. Front tooth missing, her hair in uneven braids I'd done for her that morning. She'd slept over the night before. Marla had a work trip, and David said he was too busy. We had pancakes for dinner and built a pillow fort. She called it Grandma's Castle. I remember her whispering, "You're my favorite person." I hadn't thought of that in years. She doesn't sleep over anymore. I looked at that photo and made a promise. No more giving where there's no welcome. If they want my help, they can ask. If they want my love, they can show it. And if they want my money, well, they'll have to get used to the taste of absence. Mr. Halberd's office smelled like lemon polish and old leather, the same smell it had 20 years ago when Gerald and I drafted our first will. Back then, everything was simple. House to David. Savings divided equally. We never imagined needing contingencies. He stood when I entered, tall and lean in his brown suit. "Ruth," he said, extending his hand. "It's been a long time." "Not long enough," I replied, managing a tired smile. We sat. His assistant brought tea I didn't touch. "I understand you'd like to revise your estate documents?" "Yes." "And is this a revision or a full rewrite?" "A full rewrite," I said. "From the ground up." He nodded slowly, then opened a legal pad. "Let's start with the basics. House, accounts, investments. All under my name, paid off, no liens. Any debts?" "None." He scribbled as I spoke. I watched the ink soak into the page like the beginning of something clean. "And your intended beneficiaries?" he asked. "Just one." "David?" "No." His pen stopped. He looked up, careful now. "Then who?" "Lucy," I said. "My granddaughter." Another pause. "She's a minor still?" 17 in March. "I see. Then we'd need to set up a trust. With terms. A trustee. Staggered disbursements if you wish." "Yes, staggered. I don't want the money to spoil her. I just want it to protect her." He nodded again, resumed writing. "Would you like to explain the change in direction in case of contest?" "No," I said. "But I will leave a letter." "Understood." He didn't ask more. He'd known Gerald, known me, and perhaps sensed that whatever led me here wasn't sudden. It had only ripened. He moved to the keyboard, began entering figures from my folder, bank balances, titles, my modest pension. "I also want to revoke all financial powers of attorney," I said. "David has one on file?" "We'll draft a revocation today." He looked up. "Ruth, this is a significant shift. Has something happened?" "Yes." He waited. "My cake wasn't welcome," I said simply. And to his credit, he didn't laugh. He just set down his pen and said, "Then let's make sure everything else you've made goes where it's truly wanted." That night, I opened the back closet where Gerald's coat still hung. His scent was long gone, but the fabric remembered his shape. I touched the shoulder, let my hand rest there. "Would you have done this too?" I whispered. The answer came not in words, but in the silence that follows truth. The transfer alert started at 7:42 a.m. The first was from East Haven Academy. Payment declined. Please update your billing information. Then the utility provider. Then the car lease company. By 9, they were all in my inbox, neatly lined up like soldiers reporting a quiet, bloodless coup. The phone rang at 9:14. David. I watched it blink twice before I picked up. "Hi, Mom," he said, his voice overly even. "Something weird's going on with the bank." "Oh?" "The tuition payment bounced, and the car lease. I called Whitestone. Calvin said you came in yesterday?" "I did." Another pause. "You changed something?" "Yes?" He didn't speak. I could hear the little breaths on the line, the gears turning. "You canceled the payments?" "I did." "Why?" He didn't yell. He didn't beg. He asked the way someone asks a colleague why a report's late. I swallowed, but my voice was steady. "Because they were no longer welcome." "What does that mean?" "It means I offered help, quietly and consistently, for years, and I was treated like furniture." "Oh, come on," he said. "You're overreacting." "No, David, I reacted exactly the right amount. For once." "I don't understand. Where is this coming from?" "From the porch," I said. "Where I stood holding a birthday cake you didn't ask for, didn't thank me for, and let your wife reject like garbage." He was quiet. "Mom," he said finally, "this is dramatic." I almost laughed. "Is it? You live in a house I helped pay for, drive a car I helped lease, send your daughter to a school I've covered tuition for. But when I show up with a cake, I'm told I'm not needed." "That's not what she said." "It's exactly what she said, and you didn't stop her." He sighed, low and sharp. "You're punishing us over a misunderstanding." "No," I said. "I'm correcting a mistake." A long silence. Then, "So what? You're just cutting us off?" "I'm starting with the money. The rest we'll see." "This isn't just about cake, is it?" "It's about respect. It's about showing up. It's about remembering I'm a person, not a funding source." He was quiet again. Maybe for once he heard me. "I have to figure out what to do next," he said eventually. "I'm sure you'll manage. You're a grown man." "You could have talked to me first," he added, bitterness creeping in now. "I did," I said. "For years. You just didn't hear it because it wasn't affecting your wallet." Then I hung up. The phone didn't ring again. Not that hour, not that day. And I didn't wait. Instead, I baked another cake. Same recipe, same cinnamon glaze. This one wasn't for David, it was for Lucy, and I already knew where I'd deliver it. Lucy came to the house without knocking. She never did. She always just let herself in like she used to when she was little, when I'd be in the kitchen and she'd tumble through the door yelling, "Grandma, I'm starving." Today, she said nothing. Just stood in the hallway, still in her school uniform, backpack slung off one shoulder, eyes wider than I'd seen in years. "Dad's in a spiral," she said. "Mom's throwing things." I nodded. "You hungry?" She blinked. "A little." I led her to the kitchen. The new cake sat on the counter, already sliced. She took a piece and bit into it before sitting down. For a minute, neither of us spoke. She chewed like it meant something, like it was medicine and memory, both. "Mom says you lost it," she said finally. "She says you're being vindictive." I didn't respond. "She says you're punishing Dad because you're lonely." Still, I said nothing. I just refilled her glass with water. Lucy stared at me for a long moment, and then her face changed. The edge of sarcasm dropped. "But I think maybe they're scared." I raised an eyebrow. She shrugged. "Because they know they messed up. Because you never say anything. You just do." "And what am I doing now?" "You're finally not doing," she said. "And that's worse." She took another bite of cake, more slowly this time. "Is it true?" she asked. That you paid for the school? The house? Yes. She nodded. I figured. I did it because I loved them, I said. I didn't think love needed to come with receipts. She looked down at her plate. I'm sorry about the cake, she said softly. I let that sit. Then I asked, did you want a slice that night? Yes. The next time, come get it yourself. Lucy looked up, eyes glassy. I miss you, she said. I didn't say it before, but I do. That was enough. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. We didn't speak much after that. She stayed for an hour, curled on the couch, watching an old movie with me, like she used to. Her head rested on the pillow I'd fluffed without thinking. When it was time to go, she stood by the door, hesitated, then turned. Is it true you changed your will? Yes. She swallowed. Am I in it? I nodded. It's all for you. Eventually. I don't want it for the money, she said quickly. I want you to be okay. I am, I said. And for the first time in years, it was true. The night of David's birthday passed like all the others lately. Quiet, heavy, and not even worth the pretense of celebration. I didn't check Facebook. I knew there'd be photos. Marla with her forced laugh, David smiling for the camera like nothing had cracked. Maybe Lucy too, if they'd convinced her to sit still for one. But I didn't want to see it. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with the curtains drawn. A single candle lit beside the picture frame Gerald had made when David was born. The wood's varnish had faded, and the corners were chipped, but the photo inside was still clear. A young woman holding a baby boy with startled eyes. He was mine then. I don't know when that changed, when the softness turned, when everything I gave started looking like obligation instead of love. He was 4 the first time he helped me crack eggs into the cake batter. Got more shell than yolk. It's okay, I'd said. We'll pick them out. He laughed so hard he fell off the stool. Back then, he used to press his ear to my chest when he was scared. You feel like home, he'd say. The way kids say things without knowing they're writing poems. That boy's gone. And in his place stands a man who lets his wife speak cruelty in the doorway, while he hides behind she's just particular and try to understand. I used to defend him. To everyone. Oh, he's just busy. He means well. He's tired. I let years go by with those words like a balm. But now I see it clearly. He's not tired. He's not busy. He's uninterested. Inconvenienced by my presence. Eager to keep his hands on my money, but allergic to my love. I made that cake every single year. Even after the divorce. Even when I had pneumonia and could barely stand, I still pulled it from the oven and iced it with trembling fingers. And this year, for the first time, it sat untouched. I'd left it on their porch like a stray thing, like an offering at the feet of people who no longer knew how to receive. And they hadn't even brought it in. The next morning, I drove past the house, slowly, almost ashamed of myself. The cake was gone. I don't know if they ate it, tossed it, or left it out for the raccoons. Doesn't matter. What matters is what I won't do next year. What matters is what I've already stopped doing. I didn't cry that night. I thought I would. But no tears came. Just a dull, quiet ache. Like a bruise you keep forgetting until you move the wrong way. I sat there in the dark and thought about all the birthdays I'd hosted. David's pirate party when he turned 6. The cardboard swords. The cupcakes with skull rings. He'd run up to me with frosting on his cheek and yell, "Best birthday ever." Where did that boy go? Where did I go? And then I thought, maybe the saddest thing isn't the rejection. Maybe it's the forgetting. that at some point, they stopped remembering who I'd been, what I'd done, what I'd carried. Maybe they don't know me at all anymore. But I do. And for the first time in years, that has to be enough. He called again the next day, twice in the morning, once in the afternoon. I didn't pick up. Let it ring until the sound disappeared into silence. Then he left a message. Just one sentence. Mom, we need to talk. Need. That word again. Not want, not hope, not care. Need. I let it sit in the inbox. Watched it like an animal watches a trap it's seen sprung before. At 5:42 p.m., he pulled into my driveway without warning. I saw the silver car from the window, heard the engine cut, the door slam. No flowers, no cake. Just David, in a pressed button-down and tired eyes, walking up my steps like he still belonged here. I didn't open the door right away. Let him knock once, then again. When I did, I said nothing. Just stepped aside and let him in. He looked around like he hadn't been inside in years, which was almost true. Same curtains, same lamp by the chair. But the air was different now, no welcome laid out for him. Hi, he said, adjusting his sleeve. I nodded, went to the kitchen, put the kettle on, let the quiet fill the house. When I came back with 2 cups, he hadn't sat down. He stood near the mantel, looking at the photo of Gerald. I forgot how young he looked in this one. He died that way, I said. David flinched. He finally sat. Took the tea. Didn't drink. Look, he began. I know you're upset. I get that. But this was a bit extreme. I sipped my own cup, waited. I mean, cutting off everything, without warning. Without a conversation. We're having one now, I said. He shook his head. You know what I mean. Yes, I said quietly. I do. You mean you're used to being warned before I stop giving? His mouth opened, then closed. David, I said, when's the last time you visited me without needing something? That's not fair. When's the last time you brought me tea? Or asked how I was? Or said thank you? He looked down at his hands. I raised you, I said. Alone after your father died. I worked 12-hour shifts. Packed your lunches. Helped with science projects when my eyes could barely stay open. I know, he murmured. No. You don't. If you did, you wouldn't have let your wife talk to me like I was a charity case who overstayed her welcome. She didn't mean it. She said it, I snapped, and you didn't stop her. He winced. I came with a cake, one I baked with hands that shook, and you let her say, we don't eat your food, like I was a stranger. I should have stepped in, he said quietly. Yes, you should have. But you didn't. Silence. Then, is this about the will? No, I said. It's about the years before it. The dinners you missed. The birthdays you forgot. The silence you let grow between us. He rubbed his temples. What do you want from me? I looked at him, this grown man with graying hair and a panicked expression, and for the first time, I realized the answer. Nothing, I said. I want nothing from you. His face fell. I just want you to know, I continued, that the giving stops here. The money, the silence, the pretending. David stood slowly. So that's it? No, I said. That's the beginning. He hesitated at the door. I'll call you. Don't, I said gently. Not until you have something real to say. And then I closed the door behind him. The tea was still warm when I sat down. The cake box was heavier than I remembered. Maybe because this one wasn't about obligation or tradition or trying to earn a place at someone else's table. This one was for Lucy. I wrapped it in a soft cloth, placed it in the passenger seat, and drove across town just after dusk. Her school had let out, and I knew Marla would be working late. Tuesdays were always her client nights. David might have been home, but I wasn't knocking on their door. I had another idea. I parked 3 houses down and walked the rest of the way. Leaves rustled underfoot, and the breeze carried that sweet, dry scent of late autumn. I stood in the shadows of their porch for a moment, the way I had just a week earlier. Only this time I wasn't there to be seen. I placed the cake on the step, not in the center like last time. Off to the side, tucked just beneath the bench where Lucy always left her muddy shoes. On top, I set a card. No envelope. Just her name written in soft pencil, the way I used to label her lunchboxes when she was little. Then I turned and walked back to the car. No note for Marla. No confrontation. No return address. Just a quiet gift for the only person in that house who had made me feel like I still mattered. I didn't hear anything for 2 days. Then, on Thursday, a text came through. From Lucy. I found the cake. I knew it was you. I ate 2 slices before they got home. Thank you. That was it. No emojis, no fluff. Just, thank you. I stared at the screen for a long time. Reread the words. It had been years since anyone in that house had thanked me without it being part of a transaction, without it being followed by a request. I typed back, "Did you save any for tomorrow? I might stop by." Her reply came almost instantly. "If you come, I'll make tea." So I did. I went the next day, just before sunset. She met me at the side gate, pulled me through the back garden and into the sunroom where no one else ever went. We sat cross-legged on a throw rug, a chipped mug in each of our hands, the leftover cake between us on a napkin. "I didn't tell them," she said. "You don't have to. They wouldn't understand." "No," I said. "They wouldn't." She picked at the crumbs. "I want to be different," she whispered. "From them." I didn't speak, just reached over and pushed a curl behind her ear, the way I did when she was 5. "I want to remember this," she said. "You will." And I think she will. Because not all things need to be big to be remembered. Sometimes the smallest acts, shared cake in a quiet room, a mug of lukewarm tea, become anchors in the stories we carry. We didn't talk about the will. We didn't talk about what had changed. We just sat there, 2 people who still saw each other, 2 people who still knew the language of care. The door to the attic hadn't been opened in 6 years. The key was still in the drawer under the microwave, wedged between a rubber band ball and an expired coupon for lawn fertilizer. I almost laughed when I found it. The stairs creaked in protest as I climbed. Up there, the air smelled of dust and pine insulation. The kind Gerald used to insist was the only kind worth the price. I pulled the chain on the single bulb. Light blinked twice before settling. Boxes lined the walls, some labeled in my own careful script. David's toys, old curtains, Gerald's tools. Like small grave markers of things no longer needed. I moved slowly, sliding boxes aside until I found what I came for. The toolbox. Red. Scratched. Heavy. I hauled it down the steps one at a time, careful not to catch my heel. In the kitchen, I spread its contents across the table. A screwdriver with a cracked handle, a roll of duct tape, 3 rusting nails, a faded measuring tape. That afternoon, I fixed the loose cabinet door myself. The next morning, I called a handyman to reseal the windows. Then someone to check the roof. A plumber for the leaky faucet. A painter to touch up the chipped trim in the hallway. I didn't tell anyone, didn't ask for help, didn't wait to be noticed. I just did it. For myself. The changes were small, but each time I walked through a room, something felt steadier, like the house was remembering it was mine. I rearranged the living room, moved Gerald's old recliner by the window so I could read in the afternoon sun, donated 3 boxes of David's trophies and broken toys to a local shelter. One night, I stood in the center of the kitchen and just breathed. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was mine. And I began to think. Maybe I hadn't been lonely all these years. Maybe I'd just been muted, flattened by the weight of giving too much and asking too little. Maybe I wasn't rebuilding a house. Maybe I was reclaiming a life. I started baking more. Not just cakes. Muffins, biscuits, the kind of breads that made the whole house smell like a memory. I gave a pie to Mrs. Pennington across the street. She brought back a jar of plum jam. I left a basket of rolls on the front porch for the mailman. He left a note. Best delivery I've had in years. Thank you. I planted winter herbs in the kitchen window. Bought myself a new teacup with a pattern I liked, not the one Marla once said was classier. I stopped apologizing when I didn't answer the phone. And I stopped explaining why. No one asked anyway. But Lucy came every Saturday now. Sometimes with a book. Sometimes just to sit. We talked about school, about the boy she liked, about what she might want to study. She asked if I ever regretted anything. I told her the truth. I regret how long it took me to realize I could stop waiting for someone else's permission to feel good in my own home. She looked at me the way daughters should look at mothers, even if they're born a generation apart, like I was something to learn from, not just something to use. That night, I lit a candle for myself and didn't blow it out. Lucy showed up with a notebook and a question. I want to know the whole story, she said. Not what they say, not what they assume, just yours. I set down my knitting and motioned for her to sit. The kettle was already hot, the kitchen already warm. It didn't take much these days to make the house feel full. Where should I start? I asked. She opened the notebook. Start with the first time you felt invisible. I looked at her. So young, yet already understanding that pain leaves a shape behind. I thought for a while, then said, it wasn't when they forgot my birthday, or when they skipped Christmas. It wasn't even when they stopped inviting me to dinner. She waited, pen ready. It was when they talked about me like I wasn't in the room, like I couldn't hear, like my silence meant I didn't feel. Her hand paused. What did they say? That I was a lot to manage, that I needed structure, that I was better in small doses. Lucy's jaw tensed. They said that? Not to me. That's the part that stays. They didn't say it to me. They said it to each other. She wrote in silence for a minute. Then, why didn't you say anything? Because I didn't want to make it worse. Because I thought if I gave them time, they'd remember who I was. And did they? I looked at her, this granddaughter who showed up without expectation, who sat here asking not for money, but for memory. No, I said. They didn't. She leaned forward, elbows on the table. Then I will. I smiled, tired but grateful. That's enough. She tapped her pen. You really changed your will? Yes, she nodded. I think that's brave. It's not brave. It's overdue. We talked until the sky dimmed. I told her things I hadn't told anyone. About how Gerald and I used to hide grocery money in coffee cans. About the time I took on a second job just to keep David in piano lessons he quit 2 months later. About how Marla once told me my clothes made Lucy look poor by association. I never knew that, Lucy whispered. I didn't want you to. She looked up. I want you to know something too. Go on? I'm not like them. I don't want what they want. I know. I want something real, something that's mine. I want to work, to earn, to build. You will. And if someday I get anything from you, money, the house, whatever, it won't change me. I studied her face, saw bits of David in her jaw, her eyes. But the softness, the openness, that was mine. I believe you. She reached into her bag, pulled out an envelope. I wrote you something, she said. Not because I had to, just because I wanted to. I opened it after she left. A letter. Simple. Honest. Grandma, you are the reason I know what kindness looks like. You are the reason I trust my instincts when something feels wrong. You are the reason I believe people can be both strong and soft. I don't care about the money. I care about the woman who gave it meaning. I love you. Always. Lucy. I folded it slowly. Set it next to the photo of Gerald. The two things I wanted most in life, respect and legacy, had finally come home, and they wore her handwriting. On David's birthday, I sent a card, just a plain one. No glitter, no poem, no money tucked inside. I wrote 3 words. Think of the cake. I didn't sign it, didn't have to. The handwriting was unmistakable. The message, too. It arrived 2 days late, on purpose. I knew Marla sorted the mail. I imagined her standing over the recycling bin, card in hand, wondering if it was some veiled apology, or worse, a provocation. I hoped she read it 3 times trying to parse its meaning. David wouldn't say anything, not right away, but he'd think about it. He'd see those words and remember the box on the porch, the way he didn't stop her, the way he closed the door. He'd think about the frosting he never tasted, the woman he never thanked, the account that suddenly stopped paying. Think of the cake. It wasn't just about dessert. It was about memory, about who you become when you think no one's watching, about how love, when ignored long enough, turns into a mirror no one wants to look into. I didn't want revenge. I wanted awareness. Let them sit with it. Let them replay that moment in their heads, the way I did for days. The truth is, I didn't send that card for them. I sent it for myself. Because sometimes you have to mark a turning point. Not with a scream, but with a whisper that lands like a stone in a still pond. I went for a walk that day. Through the park where I used to take David as a boy. The swings were still there, though the paint had peeled and the chains had rusted. Children screamed with delight. Mothers scrolled their phones. No one recognized me. I liked it that way. On the bench by the duck pond, I sat and unwrapped a piece of leftover cake from Lucy's last visit. Still moist, still perfect, and I ate it slowly. Each bite was for a different year I'd been silent. Each crumb was something I took back. They'd probably never understand what that card meant, but I didn't need them to. The message wasn't for their comfort. It was for their memory. For once, I wasn't trying to be forgiven or loved or accepted. I was simply trying to be seen, even if only in retrospect. Marla called first, not David. Never David. It was 6:12 p.m. I'd just sat down with a book when the phone rang. Her name lit up on the screen like a warning. I answered. "Ruth," she began, voice clipped. "I think we need to talk." "About?" "This game you're playing." I said nothing. She huffed. "The card, the payments, the trust fund. Lucy told us everything." "She told you the truth," I said. There was a pause. "You really left everything to her?" "Yes." "You realize how irresponsible that is?" "No," I said. "I realize how overdue it was." Another pause, longer this time. "You're punishing us." "No, I'm remembering myself." "Don't get dramatic." "You didn't mind when I was dramatic with my checkbook." That landed. I heard her shift. "This isn't just about cake," she snapped. "No. It's about respect and silence. and years of pretending I didn't notice how you rolled your eyes at everything I said. You never wanted me there, I said, calm as still water. And now you don't want to live without what I gave. Well, here we are. I don't think David deserves this. I know you don't. And Lucy, she's just a child. She's 17, old enough to see what kindness looks like and what it doesn't. You're setting a dangerous precedent, she said coldly. Yes, I said. I'm showing her that women don't have to keep bleeding just to keep the peace. Click. She hung up. I sat there for a while, listening to the silence she left behind. It was deeper than usual, like the house itself was nodding. Later that night, Lucy called. I'm sorry, she said. She read my notebook, took it from my bag. It's not your fault. I told them it was your choice, that it's not about money, that it's about everything they never said, never did. And did they listen? No, she said. But I didn't say it for them, I said it for me. There was a long pause. The good kind. Are you okay? She asked. I am. Even with all this? Especially with all this. Then she said something that made my chest ache, in the best way. You've made me proud to be from you. That night I made tea in my favorite cup. I sat by the window with the porch light on. No one came, no one knocked. But I wasn't waiting anymore. The garden hadn't been touched in months. It was Gerald's pride once. Roses along the fence, hydrangeas near the porch. He used to say, you can't control much in life, but you can dig and prune and watch something bloom. I walked out there with a small spade and a folded piece of paper in my pocket. It was the old will, the one that left everything to David. It had lived in my file cabinet for years, untouched, unchallenged. A script I'd been too afraid to rewrite. Now it was just paper. I knelt by the azalea bush. The dirt was damp, soft from the rain 2 nights before. I dug a shallow hole and placed the folded document inside. It didn't feel like destruction. It felt like release. I covered it gently, patted the earth flat, and sat back on my heels. The sun filtered through the clouds, not bright, but enough. I whispered to no one. That's done now. There was no ceremony, no fire, no drama. Just quiet. Later I opened a box where I kept things too painful to throw out. Drawings David made in kindergarten, a Father's Day card from Lucy to Gerald, a list of groceries I found in Gerald's handwriting after he died. I added one more item, a photograph of David and me from his high school graduation. I wasn't erasing him. I was letting go of the version of him I kept waiting to return. People say letting go is freedom. But sometimes, it's grief. The kind you do on your knees, with dirt on your hands, and no one watching. That night, I wrote a final note. Not to David. Not to Marla. To Lucy. I told her that dignity isn't something you're handed. It's something you reclaim. That silence isn't always peace. That giving without being seen will eventually drain you hollow, and that she should never confuse being good with being useful. I left the letter in a sealed envelope in the back of my dresser. With it, I placed a set of keys and the title to the house. Not because I was going anywhere soon, but because I'd finally decided where everything would go when I did. And for once, I wasn't afraid of the ending. The lawyer's office was colder than I remembered. Or maybe I'd just stopped pretending I didn't feel the drafts in places people rarely look. Mr. Halberd greeted me with the same warm professionalism, but his eyes were different this time, less cautious, more respectful. Like he understood now that I hadn't come here out of confusion, but clarity. Everything was ready. The new will, the trust, the revocations, the reallocations, the small, sharp edits, that finally reflected the woman I'd become. He handed me the last page. "You can sign here," he said. I took the pen without hesitation. My signature was slower than it used to be, but each stroke was steady, final, not with anger, not even with sadness, just resolve. "I've added a note," he said, sliding an envelope across the desk. "Per your instructions." He didn't ask what it said, but I knew he'd read it if David ever showed up with questions, and I knew what he'd find inside. If they want to know why, tell them about the cake. The drive home felt different, lighter. I stopped at the corner market, bought 1 peach, a loaf of bread, and a bouquet of flowers. Not because anyone was coming, not because I needed to impress anyone, just because I liked having flowers on the table. At home, I swept the porch, watered the herbs, and folded the last load of laundry. Then I sat by the window. Lucy came after sunset. No text, no call. She just appeared, holding a container of lentil soup she'd made herself. "It's not as good as yours," she said. "It doesn't have to be." We ate in silence, and it was the best kind. The kind where everything's already been said, but nothing feels unfinished. Before she left, she turned to me at the door. "They still don't get it," she said. "They don't have to. They think you'll change your mind. I won't." She hesitated, then reached into her coat pocket and handed me a slip of paper. A single sentence scribbled in her handwriting. "You made me see what love looks like when it refuses to disappear." I nodded, folded it once, and tucked it into the drawer where I kept important things. That night, I turned off the porch light without waiting for anyone. No call came, no apology, no grand gesture. And I didn't need one. Because this story didn't end with a door closing. It ended with me standing on my own porch, holding nothing but my own name again, and realizing it was enough. And if you've ever been made to feel small in a life you built, if you've ever sat at a table and realized your seat was only there when you were useful, then I hope you'll do what I did. Look at what you've given. Then look at what you've received. And if the math doesn't add up, recalculate. If this story meant something to you, share it. Leave a comment. Let someone else feel a little less alone.